Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, from the coal, smoke, and blackened brick row houses that lined the cobblestoned and tough back streets of London, England, came a young man who was called Adrian. Adrian had a dream that one day he would become the greatest fighter in the land. So he went out into the world and worked very, very hard to earn enough money to attend a magnificent British university from where he would graduate with a fine degree in English literature. The young man pondered his great achievement. A degree in English literature, while all well and good, didn't, however, satisfy his passion for fighting. So once again, the young man worked very, very, very hard and graduated from an even more magnificent British university with a degree in medicine. Still not convinced that a degree in English literature, or medicine for that matter, would fulfill his dream of becoming the greatest fighter in the land, the young man, now armed with a renewed determination, set out on a quest to find a master who could instruct him in the ways of aviation. Once he had mastered the skill of piloting an aircraft, Adrian went on to study the ancient Chinese art of acupuncture. His skill with a scalpel took him to hospitals far and wide, where he saved many lives and developed a plethora of innovative surgical procedures. His expertise at flying an aircraft, undetected by the authorities, enabled him to fly bootleg charters between Canada and the United States.
So we lived on a little street called Silver Street in, what would that have been, Edmonton? And Dad was a resident at the time, which meant he was working all the hours in the world.
Right.
And for some reason, we only periodically had traffic on our street because we had one of those kind of big 2x4 barriers that you could put down to block off cars from coming down the street. Do you know what I mean? So it's a cul-de-sac with an arm for blocking off.
Okay.
And I think maybe only residents were supposed to park there or something like that. In any event, there was a motorcycle gang, such as motorcycle gangs can be in small towns in Edmonton, but there was a bunch of guys on motorcycles who used to like to go roaring past the barrier because bikes could fit around it. and go wherever they were going to go. I think there was a footpath at the other end. And Dad was coming home very early one morning, I think when they were still up from being up late one night. And the neighbor, do you remember Fortunato? The neighbor told me this story, because he would never tell me his good stories. I had to get them from other people. They said he was coming back in his green scrubs and his white lab coat, and about 4 or 5 motorcycles went by him. And when the last guy went by, they said he didn't even look. He just sort of reached out and grabbed the guy by the jacket, very tired, very weary, and he pulled the guy in. I guess he brought his bike to a stop and said, "My little boy plays in this yard, and if I ever see you or your friends come riding through here again, there's going to be trouble." And then he let him go, and I'm sure that they cursed at Dad, and Dad kept walking because he was exhausted, and they kept driving. So that was it for the first encounter. Does any of this ring a bell yet?
There's a faint tinkle.
Okay. So the second time, probably about a week later, same type of deal. They're not listening to the doctor in the lab coat. And Dad sees him on the street again, coming down the cul-de-sac. And they said he walked up to the 2x4 barrier. And the guy who was relating the story to me said, the amazing thing was he didn't even seem angry. He was just kind of weary about it. But he took the thing. He cleared 4 or 5 guys right off their bikes. He kind of dusted them up a little bit and said, I warned you, and walked away and left them all in pieces on the ground. But I think you only get to do that when you're the heavyweight champion of the province, pretty much.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Hi, my name is Andy Thompson. I'm the guy on the left. The gentleman on the right is Dr. Adrian Hobart. While most of us are well aware of names like Muhammad Ali, George Chuvalo, or even Chris Christopherson, who was an accomplished boxer in its day, how many have heard the name Dr. Adrian Hobart? Well, the 3 aforementioned boxers most certainly have. Undefeated boxer, brilliant surgeon, skillful pilot, literary scholar, musician, but I'm getting ahead of myself. What follows is a glimpse into the life of this Renaissance man and a son's quest to pay tribute to the mentor and master and father who raised him and called him his golden boy.
From a distance, it's looking good.
On the morning of the launch, Peter Hobart examines a couple of possible paths the balloon could take based on wind speed and direction.
So Cambridge has burst over York splashdown south of Westchester. That's interesting. Okay, so there's some difference. That's the same launch point.
He estimates that the balloon would rise to an altitude of approximately 100,000 feet before bursting due to lack of air pressure. It would then descend to Earth and land hopefully close to home, but not in the busy metropolis of Philadelphia, where any number of scenarios could prove problematic, or overshoot and be lost in the Atlantic Ocean.
Is that getting close to Philly?
Yeah, it's a little close, but I mean, we do want it in our county.
Yeah,
we want it in
okay.
our zone. So yeah, I think that's about as good as it gets, my friend.
Yeah. So what time is the launch?
Well, we're going to shoot for 10, I think. 9:30, 10 o'clock. That's when the warning to all airmen went out.
Oh, okay. power pack charged, and we're just going to leave this little GPS to get the last little bit of juice.
I gotta tell you, Susan, my ears don't work that fast anymore. They don't. Stop it. Get something.
Adrian Hector Hobart was born February 2nd, 1934, and grew up in London during the Blitz, an unprecedented period of unrestricted bombing of the civilian population in that great city during the Second World War. On 2 occasions, he remembered waking up in his bed, looking at the stars because the roof had been blown off his house. It is instructive to recall that the gentleman he became was forced to claw his way out of this rubble as a small child. Adrian went on to earn a scholarship at Dulwich College, one of the country's premier preparatory schools. It was here at Dulwich where Adrian developed a taste for the sweet science of boxing. Adrian had a wide variety of jobs as a young man. His working life began as a milkman's helper, accompanying the milkman on his daily rounds at an absurdly young age. He went on to work as a builder's laborer, a moving man, and a lifeguard on Hayling Island. At the age of 18, in the wake of the Second World War, Adrian was called to perform 2 years of national service. The military lifestyle agreed with him, particularly the aviation component, and it was during this time that a love of flying took hold of his soul and it never let go. The rigors of military training, combined with his boxing skills, made him a formidable adversary in the ring, winning a variety of armed forces titles. After completing his military service, Adrian was accepted to Cambridge University. The 6-foot, 180-pound ex-serviceman with biceps so developed that his shirts had to be specially tailored dwarfed his colleagues on the university boxing team. Adrian graduated from Cambridge and went on to medical school. For many, the rigors of simply attending medical school proved too much to bear. Adrian sailed through the process, all the while working odd jobs to pay the bills, accumulating boxing titles with both hands, and writing and performing in musicals just for fun in his spare time. In 1965, Adrian was married to Virginia Faulkner, and the couple moved to Canada. Adrian worked at a variety of hospitals in Canada, including sick kids in Toronto. Many years later, the nursing staff recalled that he would go up to the rooftop at lunchtime to skip in order to stay fit. His training stood him in good stead when he competed for and won the Golden Gloves Heavyweight Championship in Edmonton in 1969, while simultaneously working at the city's primary hospital. The newspapers ran several articles, including one entitled, "The Surgeon with the Deadly Left Hand."
This reminds me a little bit of County Route 8 out to your place. Ready to have your important duty? There are the ashes, do not drop them.
While Peter fills his balloon with helium, I'll take this opportunity to share another bit of Adrian's history. While working as a flight surgeon for the U.S. military, Dr. Hobart's reputation as a skilled acupuncturist came to the attention of the Saudi royal family. Upon their request, the Air Force loaned Adrian to the royal family, who flew the good doctor all around the kingdom to treat members of the House of Saud. This is the notice to all airmen that was sent out to warn any planes in the area of the presence of Peter's weather balloon. Normally, it would be very difficult to be granted permission to launch a private weather balloon, but the FAA seemed to embrace this project and nicknamed it Dr. Hobart's Final Flight.
Oh, we're saying goodbye to somebody, all right.
Just not in. Get the blue box, honey, and another zip code. It's one of these black things.
This thing right here. That's what it was.
And the scissors.
My granddad's ashes.
With a little more enthusiasm. Okay, never mind. That's okay. One. Up and away. Kath, I wouldn't mind you getting a picture if you would be so kind.
Do it with mine or yours?
I let it go. Here comes the first one. I've lost it.
It's gone right into
It's gone into the clouds. There he is right there, look. Up into the clouds.
Andy, you getting all this? I hope so.
right. It's going. Right
Oh,
into that
that's so cool.
Ipswich Lads Club versus Cambridge University. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
And then this is, Adrian used to work on the beach, on the pedalo boats.
Okay.
Because he could show off his form, you see. But his best friend was Jimmy Reese. And,
And he's still doing it.
and this was his sister, Pam.
Oh, yes.
And she came and was with the hula hoop on Poppy Day.
Ah,
So, yeah. She was quite the rage.
there's a lot of Pam in there.
There's a lot of Pam in there. Yes, indeed. And actually, when he won the Golden Gloves, they flew him down to New York City, and he was on To Tell the Truth.
Oh,
The old TV
Tell the
show,
Truth,
yes.
yeah.
And
Fabulous.
Orson Bean was the one that guessed that he was the real person. Yeah.
Orson B.
Can't get it
Yeah.
past Orson.
Yeah, couldn't get it past Orson. No.
Who's with the punching bag there?
That was a guy named Wells, wasn't it, Adrian?
That's Wells,
Yeah, and he'd been a former champion, but I mean, he was long past his boxing days.
thank God.
Thank God. Yeah.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
He boxed for 20 years and never lost a fight. Not one.
High Flight by John McGee. Oh, I have slipped the scaly bonds of earth and danced the skies on laughter's silvered wings. Sunward I've climbed and joined the tumbling mirth of sun-split clouds and done 100 things you have not dreamed of. Wheeled and soared and swung, high in the sunlit silence. Hovering there, I've chased the shouting wind along and flung my eager craft through footless walls of air. Up the long, delirious, burning blue, I've topped the windswept heights with easy grace, where never lark nor even eagle flew. And while with silent lifting mind I've trod the high untrespassed sanctity of space, put out my hand and touched the face of God.
As we departed the launch site, I looked around at the mountainous vista that stretched as far as the eye could see. Nearly inaccessible mountains carpeted with thousands upon thousands of 150-foot tall eastern white pine. I thought about the balloon and its precious cargo, and about its safe return to Earth. Adrian was a true Renaissance man, healer, martial artist, poet, playwright, composer, musician. Almost every endeavor in his life involved interaction with others, except one, flying. Only another pilot can truly appreciate the raw, unbridled joy of soaring sunward, alone at the controls, the ground and its petty concerns vanishing beneath outstretched wings. It is a deep and personal communion with what the poet McGee called the long, delirious, burning blue. Perhaps that is why Adrian used to say that his plane made its initial ascent like a homesick angel. And it is to that same deep, mysterious blue that his family committed his ashes on Thanksgiving Day, 2013. As we traveled east on numerous roads, traversing interstate after interstate, crowded with speeding cars and trucks, and through cities and towns bustling with traffic, past big box stores and warehouses with football field-sized flat roofs, the idea of a safe return and recovery, in my mind at least, seemed less and less likely. Approximately 3 hours after the launch, Peter initiated the GPS locator. We waited in anticipation. No signal. Resigned that any number of grim scenarios could have thwarted a successful return to Earth, intact, we were consoled by the fact that at least the launch went off without a hitch. We were about to head for home when Peter's cell phone rang.
Hi, my name is Jack Myers. I'm calling to let you know that your high-altitude payload has landed on our street. No, not a problem. It's just, when do you think you might be able to recover it? Yeah. My red Mini Cooper is parked in front of the house, and I'll have the payload next to the driveway outside. Okay then. Bye-bye.
Oh. It's a high-altitude balloon payload. It contains harmless scientific equipment. Please do not open. If found, please contact this number. 15. Disregard if possible. Hey, yourself?
I just spoke to him. There's a complaint.
I wonder if these guys called already. The homeowner here.
Apparently it's marked some kind of weather balloon.
Yeah, it's a weather balloon. Okay. Let's check with the homeowners and see. They may have already called the weather balloon.
I just called.
Did the guy call that number already? He's gonna go ward.
This is a high-altitude weather balloon payload. Hey, John, how are you?
Did you move it out of the roadway?
I moved it out of the roadway, yes.
Did you contact them yet or no?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
They're on their way from the Harrisburg area.
Did you hear anything ticking?
You picked it up?
No?
Did you hear anything ticking?
No. And it's
There's a
very,
cat.
very light.
Let the hurt check it out.
Yeah. Go for it.
There's a camera on this side.
I didn't actually mean that. Just leave it alone. We'll let it go.
Camera over here, yeah.
Nothing close, man.
Where are we going?
We are going to Narberth.
Oh, okay.
All right, start looking for numbers, guys.
500.
This guy go by. 506.
506. So it's going to be on this side, left side.
And it's what number?
515.
Are we going up or down?
We're going up.
Oh, yeah, we are.
5. There it is. Okay.
There it is. It's sitting
Okay.
outside.
Right there. Okay. My grandmother Barbara and my
Grandmother.
wife. I mean my mother. I'm sorry, her grandmother. And my wife Kathleen.
Hello.
I'm sorry that it dropped in such an urban area. You drove far, far out west to try to make it now.
Did you see it coming down?
No, I didn't see it
Yeah,
coming
show
down.
us.
I was getting some stuff out of the basement and looked through the door and saw it sitting in the street. It was actually taken with a
any fun at all.
Yeah.
Not even a dent.
Wow, look at all this.
Oh, that's the balloon.
The weather balloon.
When it pops.
Wow.
Yeah. This is sort of a memorial flight for my father, who was a pilot. We may still be rolling. Yep, camera's still rolling. Good. So that's the GPS locator. These are some bracelets that my daughter wanted to go up to space. And that should still be on.
Wow.
I don't know if you were called by the local police.
The locals.
Yeah, my wife works for transportation security, and she said, you can't take chances. And they brought in the canine, and he sniffed it.
Oh, really? Did they?
And he had absolutely, he was more interested in where my dog pees on that.
And all of our research said that it shouldn't go more than 100 miles.
Sure.
That's what people were saying, and yet it went, what, closer to 3, right? 300 miles? 200 miles?
230 anyway. Yeah, 220, 230.
Good winds up there today.
And actually, it was beautiful because there was ice on all the trees. So the sun was glistening off it. It was really beautiful.
Well, again, thank you so much, Jack. I appreciate it. Thanks for being part of our little experiment.
No worries.
Do you have a business card or anything? I could send you a copy.